Happy New Year! Last night, to celebrate the new year, my husband and I went to see an improv show. By the way, a little bit about my background. My husband is an improviser. He teaches improvisation. I used to be an improviser as well and studied at Upright Citizens Brigade, which I think I will always have a love for improv comedy. There's just something so healing about it. There's a verse that says, "He who sits in heaven laughs," and I thoroughly think laughter is great medicine. I got out of the industry. By the way, I was in the entertainment industry from the time I was about 13 years old till 21. I was in television and film and also loved improv comedy, but I got out of that because of a moral incongruence I felt from projects I was being submitted for through my agent, opportunities I was getting offered. At that time, when I got out of it, I was 21, and it was always the vampire show. I could just, anyway, so I haven't done anything since, but yesterday we went to go see this improv show. When we walked in the door, there was a little box that said, "Write down your 2025 New Year's resolutions." And so we wrote down our resolutions, and as I was writing mine down, should I keep this worldly or can we go spiritual on this? I don't know why I felt like I needed permission to write down my own New Year's resolution, which is to know God more. Oh, how I might know him and the power of his resurrection. That is my heart cry for 2025. The hubby was like, "Allison, write it down." I was like, "Oh, okay, all right. I'll write my real New Year's resolution down," because come on, let's face it. Most people are probably going to be writing down "I want to lose 5 pounds. I want to blah, blah, blah." I'm like, know God more in an improv comedy show. Well, all right, I did. Dropped it in the box and we went on to the show. I was not thinking they were going to get any of our suggestions. Before the show started, my husband got to talking to a couple of people and I was walking around the theater and I was just praying. In my heart, I was telling God how I so wanted his heavenly, creative, artistic nature to rest inside the theater, for heaven's alignment to come, for people to feel his joy in his presence. And I prayed for all the improvisers that they would just know God and feel his presence in that theater. And then the show started, and guess what? They pulled out the first suggestion for the New Year's resolution for their scene, and guess what it was? To know God more. I looked at my husband like, we'll see how this goes. And everybody on stage, when they read this suggestion out loud, was like, "Oh, all right." So they decided to set up the scene with God being on a date with one of the improvisers. It was, I can't even begin to tell you. They started the scene out with God already being in the restaurant. They were at Olive Garden and the improviser came in who was on the date with God, sat down when the host escorted her to the table to meet with God. He said, "He's already here." It was just hilarious. And it was amazing how they just said, "Yes, and we're going to do the suggestion." And they did it. And I literally felt like God, I know this sounds crazy because we're sitting in a theater, right? It's not a church setting. But I literally just could feel God's heart and his joy and his presence in that theater. The show went on and they were just so talented and incredible. But there was one pinnacle point of the night where they got out the last suggestion resolution box, which read, it just brought such camaraderie between everyone. It read, "I never have to work again." And everybody, I'm talking everybody in the audience, immediately erupted into a roar. There was a guy on stage who knocked over a chair. I'm talking, it was crazy. And this older man stands up in the audience who wrote that suggestion, and everybody was cheering for this man. They have him get on stage to participate in the scene. This guy's dream was to be a writer, to write nonfiction. And you could feel that everyone in the audience had the same heart cry, that like they're probably working jobs they don't want to be in, and they have this desire, this destiny for something different, and they don't know how to connect that with their life. Interestingly enough, God spoke to me a couple of days ago. It may have even been yesterday or the day before that, but God told me about my children. I have 2 children, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. He said, schooling for them, like me teaching them, we're pretty much homeschooling our children, but me teaching them is marrying their destiny and their calling in life with their education and how we teach them. So it's understanding each child's destiny and modifying their education plan to propel them and prepare them for that destiny to be released. The show ended, and I'll just tell you this. I told my husband after the show that I felt more connected with people around me, meeting people there, than I have when I've gone to church on Sunday. And I'm not knocking church, and I'm not knocking church service. It's important to gather together. We need to gather together. But I want there to be, my heart cry is for there to be a shift in the church in general. I know not all churches are like this. I'm not trying to project and say church is bad, all churches are like this. This is not what I'm saying. Please don't hear me wrong on that. All I'm saying is that in general, I want there to be a mindset shift within the church. That church is not a business. That church is relational. God is an intimate God of relationship. We should have deep intimacy, relationships with each other. And I feel like we're starving for that as in society. We're starving for that people want that connection so badly. But a lot of us are antisocial. A lot of us are extreme introverts. A lot of us, are on social media to get connected to people, but don't have real connections in everyday life. Like, how do we connect those two things? How do we connect those two worlds? How do we connect our desire with true connection in our real lives?